Hello everyone, this is Dr. Marko Tadros, and today I want to talk to you about a very important topic, and that is the power of 3D printing in dentistry. Lately, 3D printing has becoming a huge subject in the dental field, and especially digital dentistry. There's many reasons for that, and first of all, I want to explain to you why has this been happening. The last 3-4 years, a lot of the patents of the big companies ran out, so they don't hold the monopoly of 3D printing anymore. Printers can range from $1,500 all the way up to $150,000. There are more even expensive printers than this that could cost $250,000. And these very expensive printers do have advantages, which could be speed, much bigger build platform, and also multicolor printing, which are advantageous. But in our dental field, we can use the more affordable 3D printers that are available nowadays to do a lot of things. And today I want to discuss with you what have I been using 3D printing in dentistry, because I'm trying to integrate 3D printing in so many different aspects of my day-to-day practice. So I get a lot of people asking me, what can you 3D print in dentistry other than surgical guides? Because a lot of people see printing of surgical guides, but they think that this is really the limits. But that's not true. There are many applications of being able to use 3D printing in dentistry, and today I want to share with you some of these applications. In this slide here, you can see that I've printed models, dies, shells, and so many other things that you will be seeing in the next slides. But I want to start off with this model right here. So you can actually easily 3D print a model, scan a patient after you prep and just print the model, and also print the dies separately or in the same color or in a different color. In this instant, you might be wondering, how did I print two different colors and I don't have those very expensive printers? What I did was I printed with one resin tank, the gray model, and then I replaced the tank with a white resin, and I also was able to print the dies in the white resin, and they fit just fine. Some people contacted me about my post asking me how did I get the dies to fit good in the model because they were not getting the same results. And that really goes back to your cleaning protocol. So I have a specific cleaning protocol that I will share with you guys later, but basically it's the slimy layer that after a print is finished, there is always like a very thin slimy layer around the print. If you don't clean it very well, it will cure and it will make the die slightly wider in being able to fit into the model. So it's very critical on how you do this. I have included the website thingiverse.com, and the model was designed over there and it was uploaded. I believe it was number 16127, so just follow this link right here and you'll be able to download this model and print it yourself and test it if you want. Now the next model here is actually of a patient of mine, and tooth number 18 needed a crown. So in this instant, I actually used so many different software, so many different technologies to bring the final results. So I used a Formlabs 3D printer. I used 3Shape to design the crown, and I also used the E4D machine, Planmeca E4D machine, to mill the crown in Emacs here. Now over here you can see how well the crown fit the die, and it's pretty impressive. There's not one single open margin in this instant. So 3D printing and milling and using different softwares can actually be very accurate. You just need to integrate them correctly together and test before you move on. So if you have different systems and you want to do this, it is possible. You just have to test it and make sure it works just fine. Another very neat application of 3D printing is the ability to 3D print cone beam CT files and have them in reality. So basically this was a cone beam CT of a patient that I was able to print in a 1-to-1 ratio, and notice that the patient in the CBCT is out of occlusion. This is very important so that you can take the mandible and the maxilla and print them in two different jobs, because a lot of times these very affordable 3D printers are unable to print large prints. So in this case, you want to have the mandible and the maxilla separate. Also, it is beneficial to do that because then you can only print the mandible if you want to, or just the maxilla. And for instance, if a patient needs to have part of the mandible resected due to cancer or any other reasons, then you can actually pre-plan the pre-bending of the titanium bar before the surgery, and this is of extreme importance to oral surgeons and I guess periodontists if they do big surgeries like these. I also know some surgeons that like to print the maxilla before they do zygomatic implants to practice the implant location exactly how it should be. Now, like I said, this is different applications from the normal restorative dentist, but it is something that we have to keep in mind for our colleagues. If you have a patient that will need a prosthesis later on and they're getting an obturator or something like that, it could be of an advantage to you. Another really neat application is being able to print a provisional shell. And to me, this is of an extreme importance, especially if you do full mouth rehabilitations, because you're able to prep the full arch and have a shell that you can reline in position. This is as you can see, this is a 3D printed shell, and the polished shell is extremely shiny and it does not show any lines of evidence of 3D printing, but this was in fact 3D printed. Next, I want to talk to you about 2D to 3D digital wax-ups. This is something of an extreme importance to me because as a restorative dentist and as someone who likes to do full mouth rehabilitations and smile rehabilitations, I actually analyze this in my own way and I then digitally wax the case and then I 3D print it. In this case, I actually printed this model on my Joule 3D printer. And then we took impressions, me and Dr. Landano, and then we did a mock-up. So here you can see the mock-up and you can see how accurate the incisal edges are for both the left and the right side. And what do I mean by accuracy here? I see a lot of smiles or mock-ups that are canted, and the reason is there was probably an error between changing your 2D to 3D design, or if you are just designing in 3D as well, sometimes there are errors. So I have created my own way of making sure that this doesn't happen as often, and if it does, it's easily corrected. But as you can see here, the incisal edges of the two centrals are touching that black line at the same time. So are the laterals and the canines as that line moves up, and so is the premolar here, the first premolar. It is okay to have a little bit of inaccuracy or a little bit of asymmetry as you move from the midline of the two centrals, and that just makes the smile more natural. But the midline has to be vertical, and that's very important. So in the next slide, I want to also show you something here. As you remember, I said you can probably 3D print. I'm not sure if I said that before or not, but if I did, I told you you can 3D print anything, but you cannot melt everything. And this is important to remember. This is something that I have designed here and 3D printed so that it will hold my loops, because my loops were on my glasses and it used to give me headaches. So I designed this to get attached to my headband and be able to hold the loops, as you can see in here. Now, I want to go back to applications in dentistry. So if you look here, this is a file that was transferred from Dr. Gardy to me, and then I helped him plan the case for an implant, and then I can easily send back the file to him to 3D print the guide. So the reason I say no borders and no limits is the fact that there are truly no limits to this technology, because you can easily just send files and have them milled or 3D printed in another part of the world. In this case, as you can see here, you see the guide in green, and the teal color is the model, which is superimposed correctly on the CBCT of the patient, and the implant was planned on the CBCT. And because the model and the CBCT are correctly aligned, the guide will place the implant exactly how it was planned. Here is another guide and a model that were 3D printed on two different printers. In this case, it was the Formlabs and the Joule 3D printer. And the white space that you see here in question mark at the arrow is actually an undercut of the placement of the guide. So the guide has only one way of placement along the axis, and the computer algorithm already finds out where the undercuts are, and it will relief it. In this case, there was an undercut in the anterior of the canine, and it was relieved, and that's what you see in the white space. But I want to show you here the accuracy of the guide, which was printed on the jewel, and the model, the gray model, which was printed on the Formlabs. There is absolutely no hollow areas and no spaces between the two guides, so it's very accurate. And also, the surgeon, when he tried in the guide, he was pretty impressed of the fit as well. In the next slide, I want to show you something which is near and dear to my heart, which is the complex cases. I love doing complex cases, so I want to simplify the process to myself. And the way I do this is I pre-plan everything. So I pre-plan the implant positions before any extractions, and then I re-plan after the bone grafts and everything if needed. And in this case, we planned for 8 implants. This is one of the most complex guides, and as you can see here, the guide has many implants and also pens that passes through between implants. So you need to be very clear and accurate about your position of this guide, because this is a tissue supported guide, and there are ways to make sure that this guide exactly fits how it was planned. Now here's a close-up of the guide and the complexity of it. It's a very nice guide, one of my favorites that I have designed. And then in the next case here, which was done by Dr. Kristen Bankowski, she approached me to try to do this case with a flapless procedure. And the only way to do that is if you have a guided surgery guide. So in this case, the patient needed to have all 10 implants placed in a very short period surgery, because the patient has Parkinson's and she cannot stay in the chair for a very long time. And she also requested that she has all of her implants placed in one surgery and not 2 surgeries. So I've done the guide. I planned it with Dr. Brankowski, and I printed it for her, and she placed all the implants. And in the cross section here, you can see how accurate these implants are. All of them are within bone, and you can even see how she lifted the sinus floor using the burrs, which in this case, I believe she used the Versa burrs to lift up the sinus, about 2.14 millimeters. So I will end my presentation with some of these applications. I hope you guys enjoyed this presentation. If you liked it, feel free to give it a thumbs up or share it with other friends. And hopefully you guys are more now interested in buying your own 3D printer.